Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto anime episode review. This one's going to be for episode 80, which is called Mitsuki's Friend. And this was a kind of unique episode in that the majority of the episode, probably 80-85% of the episode, was just a very kind of extended conversation between Mitsuki and Sekiei. And, obviously they're addressing their friendship, but also in the middle of that discussing Mitsuki's friendship with Boruto. And it obviously leads you to ask the question of, the title, who's it referring to as such. And I think they do enough with Sekiei in this episode where, you actually buy and get behind the idea that, there is actually this kind of bond between Mitsuki and Sekiei because they are both created beings and they both are kind of experiencing, in a way, similar problems. And it also does help to sort of get to the root, I suppose, in a way, of some of the doubts that Mitsuki has. And I liked how they used the symbolism, the kind of metaphor of Boruto is my son. And they kind of, Mitsuki talks about how bright he is, he always has friends around him, but they bring up the idea that Mitsuki kind of feels far away. The sun is far away, and that's how he feels with Boruto. He can't ever get too close, because as Sekiei at the end says, if you get too close, you are kind of blinded, you get burned up. So I think that was a kind of very interesting one, in a way, to obviously address the fact that obviously Boruto and Mitsuki have very different personalities, and potentially just the fact that as Boruto is kind of having to deal with, he potentially hasn't given Mitsuki the most time in terms of, I suppose, being a good friend to him. But we'll see how that goes in the next episode. The next episode looks like, obviously, we're going to deal with Boruto dealing with stuff while he's unconscious, talking to Garaga, it looks like. But this episode was Mitsuki focused, minus a scene at the very start and a scene at the very end of Kurotsuchi obviously having to encounter Lord Fu. But before that, she went to visit Onoki, who's in hospital, and obviously things are looking fairly bad for him. His old age is beginning to actually take effect, and I think without saying as much, they're basically saying, yeah, he's dying. It could be any time now that he actually dies, which is interesting if they commit to doing that in this arc, but again, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But just seeing Kurotsuchi actually get taken out by Lord Fu here. Obviously, we don't see the fight and the exact details of what happens, but it seems like this guy is able to actually defeat her, at least one-on-one, or he overwhelmed her with a couple of extra guys as well. Either way, at the end, we see that she's captured. She's held in this cell that has all these seals there, so I suppose it's just this, if she just tries to do anything, she's going to get blown up or something like that. And we see that clearly Lord Fu is behind all these Akata things, plus the obviously created beings. So the arc really feels like it's only just starting to get going here, so it's definitely going to be a lengthy arc here. I think we're in for a pretty long one with this one at this point, with so much to do. I assume the Leaf is going to have to get involved here. In that I assume the Stone, once they figure out what's going on, is going to directly ask for help with this, and that's going to get Naruto and everyone else involved. Plus, Boruto obviously has to get his confidence back. We have to deal with Boruto and Mitsuki, Boruto and Sekiei. Lord Fu has to have an arc. I assume Onoki probably will wake up and you'll get, maybe his last kind of last moment dealing with Lord Fu and what's going on there, referencing stuff from the first episode of this arc, that weird seemingly one-off episode that's actually sort of becoming more and more important now. But as I said, most of the episode focused on Mitsuki and Sekiei, and we obviously got the idea here at the start that Sekiei is beginning to sort of fall apart. This is the weaknesses of this sort of created beings, where they're made from this special kind of clay jutsu or whatever it is, that they don't seem to last long. There's this instability to them. They have to keep taking a certain medicine just to, I suppose, maintain the stability of their being. and Sekiei was on the verge of dying here, and I thought it was significant that Mitsuki already sort of cares enough about him that he doesn't want him to die and is concerned about what's happening here. But obviously there's a much more serious kind of conversation that happens here. Sekiei is aware of the snake and what happened, that Mitsuki hasn't been entirely honest with them about that. But because he's dying, he's still having an open conversation with him and discussing, I suppose, what friendship means, what being a human means, and Mitsuki's kind of teaching him all these little things along the way. I thought there were a couple of nice moments here. Of course, Boruto addressing the positives of Boruto, and that, it hasn't properly explained to us exactly yet why he's, I suppose, specifically chosen to go as far as to attack Boruto. But I think it's a little bit more understandable just because, again, he mentions the idea of, if I'm a creative being, what if these feelings, what if the fact that I am kind of attached in a way to Boruto is also something that's manufactured? What is my own will? And he's trying to test the limits of that. And that's the whole kind of issue at play here. Because basically, as we saw, like in the Mitsuki's kind of solo episode, addressing his origins to a degree, he was just given this document about Boruto and kind of told to, like, look at this person. And it seems like he just personally has accepted this and attached himself to Boruto, but now he's beginning to have his doubts. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of exactly deal with that, because obviously I don't think we have the full extent of the letter. I think we know roughly that it's dealing with the fact that, like, the whole reason this is happening in the first place, the reason this group wants Mitsuki, is to try and stabilize the whole artificial human thing, because obviously he's an artificial human and he's stable as far as we're aware. They aren't, and they're hoping to, I suppose, mix technologies of how has Orochimaru managed to do this versus what's Mitsuki able to do. So that's still a major plot point that still has to come out, in addition to all this other stuff. They also brought up as I suppose a notable moment in the episode the idea that if you're close enough, you'll tell, like, your biggest secret to your best friend. And in this case, the friendship between Mitsuki and Sekiei, the secret is that Sekiei is not going to tell the others about Mitsuki's, I suppose, leaving that guy alive and leaving the message to Boruto and stuff like that. But there's also, I suppose, the other part of all of this, that, like, they seem to be able to detect if Mitsuki's telling a lie and that he's keeping something back, and that there is some sort of a secret that he's not telling anyone. So there's a lot going on here. It's actually, I thought, like, a very kind of thought-provoking episode. Some of the more recent ones have been fairly, like, basic to the point, like they're not really addressing maybe the theme of the arc, but this one definitely brought a lot of that stuff back up, with just the sun metaphor, the symbolism of that coming back up, the significance of friendship, even little things like, I suppose, they set up a sort of more notable friendship between, like, Mitsuki and Chocho, and him referencing her again a couple of times in this episode is obviously furthering the whole idea of, like, do we ship Mitsuki and Chocho? Like, it's I thought it was fairly significant that, like, he's mentioning her before he mentions, like, Sarada, his teammate, or anyone else. That Boruto and Chocho seem to be the notable people to him, so that's significant in my opinion. And I suppose that's why Chocho's sort of, like, sticking around, I suppose, with everyone. But yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to say about this episode. I think that the big conversation that was most of the episode was actually really well done to add to the character, because obviously Mitsuki's only just recently come back into focus, and I think this was a much needed episode to explain some of his motives without, I suppose, getting into every single thing and just kind of ruining the whole arc. But yeah, lots of stuff is going to happen from here on out. Is it going to be just the kids figuring all of this out, or when will word get out to the adults back in the Leaf Village that, okay, Kurotsuchi has been kind of removed from power here, there's basically a coup going on in the Stone Village. how does that get out, I suppose, is the big significant thing. But yeah, that's been my review for the episode. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.